behind the scenes of today's showing of MSNBC. Everybody here has expressed some interest in the recent topic of the Ebola virus outbreak, which is the reason all of you guys are here today. It is hard to walk down the street without hearing the word Ebola, whether or not you're walking to class, whether or not you're reading the newspaper, whether or not you're talking to somebody, you're just hearing the word expressed in the manner on the street. Today we have a group of numerous people here today who are masters in their field. You will hear them all speak here very shortly. They have done countless interviews, countless research papers to make them masters in the topic they will be discussing today. Right now, today we have Dr. Nick Bretz, international analyst Cody McCormick, economist Jennifer Hurley, and the director of the CDC, Justin Wood. It is very important to understand this topic, and in order to do so, we must look at it from a various number of different perspectives. Today we're going to discover the medical perspective, we're going to discuss the international perspective, we're going to discuss how Ebola is affecting our wallets by looking at the economic perspective, and also we're going to look at the ethical and moral perspective. So sit tight, relax, and the show is about to begin. Hello everybody, and welcome to today's showing of MSNBC. Today, to start out, we're going to report live to Dallas, Texas, where news reporter Katie Corbett will be presenting today.
Cassidy, this is Katie Corbett, and I am currently live from Dallas, Texas, outside of Texas Presbyterian Hospital of Dallas, where the first diagnosis of Ebola was made in the U.S. We do not know the name of the patient, but we do have the facts on the diagnosis. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, it was on September 30th, 2014 that the diagnosis was made. The man had traveled from Liberia to Dallas, Texas, and approximately 4 days after he returned, he developed symptoms. The man was isolated in the hospital, and specimens were sent to the laboratory. On October 8, 2014, the man had passed away. Public health officials identified all close contacts of the patient for monitoring for 21 days after exposure. As of October 31st, 2014, in Dallas, Texas, there are 3 confirmed cases of the Ebola virus. There is 1 confirmed contact and 76 current possible contacts. Now that I have talked about the diagnosis here in Dallas, Texas, I will tell you a little bit about the history of the Ebola virus. Stated by my source from African News Service, published in 2014, fruit bats are thought to be the natural hosts of the Ebola virus, which appeared among humans in Nazareth in Sudan and Yambugu in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1976. It was also stated by the previous source that the largest outbreak was in 1976, reporting 318 cases. The current outbreak is reported over 2,000 cases since it emerged in Guinea, including over 1,000 deaths. Now that I have talked about the diagnosis in Dallas, Texas, and more about the history of the Ebola virus, I hope that gives you more insight. Back to the classroom. Classroom.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you for reporting to us today. Next, we will be talking to Dr. Nick Bretz, who has been following the Ebola virus very carefully. Doctor?
Thank you for having me today, Cassidy. I've been following Ebola very closely for quite some time now and monitoring its effects on the body and the transitions that it's made over time. Ebola is easily one of the deadliest diseases within the past century that we have seen in the medical community. But before we can actually talk about the effects that Ebola has on the body, and different symptoms that show up, we need to talk about the transmission of the virus and contraction of it. There are various ways in which Ebola is contracted and transmitted. However, the two main ways that we see currently are through bodily fluid transmissions and close physical contact with those who are infected. According to the Virology Journal, Inoculation Through Cross-Species Immunity, published in 2014, the current strain of Ebola is not cross-species. This differs greatly from the first case of Ebola, which was thought to have been mutated through fruit bats. This shows something called viral variability. It is a difference in the genetics of the current strain of virus compared to the older. According to the Centers for Disease Control, those who have actually had the disease and no longer show symptoms are incapable of transmitting the disease to others. It is inoculant in their system. However, studies have shown that the disease is still present in sperm cells after 3 months of the virus showing no symptoms. Now that we've seen the various forms of contraction of the illness, let's look at some of the symptoms and the effects that it has on the human body. The virus is extremely deadly, infecting natural human cells and spreading throughout the body. According to the World Health Organization Ebola virus fact sheet, published in 2014, the Ebola virus shows beginning symptoms of muscle aches, fever, sore throat, and all-around body fatigue. Now this somewhat corresponds to early symptoms of the flu, so it's hard to give an early diagnosis of whether the patient has contracted Ebola or the flu. However, what sets Ebola apart from the flu is the later stages of its attack on the body. Internal and external hemorrhaging or bleeding occurs, and often there are different sores that develop on the outside of the skin. These sores make it possible for acute infections to occur, which will also hurt the body in the immune compromised situation that it's already in. Now that we've talked about some of the effects and symptoms that the body shows from the Ebola virus, we can now talk about some of the prevention and treatments that are possible. Because Ebola is such a dangerous virus, there aren't too many things that you can do to treat it. However, there are a few options available for those inflicted. According to the World Health Organization, there are no proven treatment methods. However, blood products, immune therapies, and drug therapies are currently being evaluated for treating the disease. Also, hydration is the #1 key to keeping the person alive during the fight against Ebola. If they're able to stay alive while having fluids in them, they are able to fight the disease much better. Currently, vaccines are being tested for human use. Prevention of the disease, as outlined by the Centers for Disease Control, require and maintain that there are double-layered gloves, face mask with a respirator, and a full body suit. Also, clean and hygienic sterilization through hand washing is necessary to prevent the disease from spreading.
Thank you, Doctor, for discussing such a controversial topic. Next, we have international analyst Cody McCormick.
Thanks, Cassidy. The Ebola outbreak is a huge international issue and is under heavy watch in almost every country. The patients going into hospitals with undiagnosed symptoms are being put in separate sections of the hospitals, making sure they don't have the Ebola virus or have not been exposed to the virus. The virus has originated in Africa and has spread to 9 countries now, and majority of these cases have been reported in African countries. According to Vox Media, there is somewhere around 8,997 reported cases, and 7,667 of them have been reported in Africa alone. 4 of these cases spread to the US, and 3 of them spread to Spain. Out of these reported cases, 4,493 people have died from the disease, and countries that are already affected by the virus are doing everything they can to keep the disease from spreading throughout their country and to other countries. The countries in Africa that have been affected by the Ebola treatment, or by the Ebola, have created treatment centers and diagnosis centers. And according to the to this map here, there's 6 treatment centers and 4 diagnostic centers, indicated by the icons right there. And this is a problem because people in the rural areas of Africa, they don't have ways of getting to the treatment centers, causing problems, leaving them not able to get to the treatment, leaving them around all the people that are still in the rural areas, possibly spreading the disease even more. And according to McLean's opposing viewpoints, 3 people have been diagnosed in Spain, and 1 was an American citizen who is still in critical condition. And another case in Spain was a nurse that became infected, and both patients have been put under heavy watch in Spain. And the Ebola virus has caused many problems, but the disease has caused many problems for countries, and another major problem it has caused is the economic aspect, which will be discussed by my colleague Jenna, who is an economist following the virus and how it is affecting countries economically.
Thank you, Cody. Next, we will hear from economist Jennifer Hurley, who will discuss how the Ebola virus outbreak is affecting all of our wallets.
Thank you for having me here today, Cassidy. One of the most overlooked aspects of the Ebola outbreak is how it's affecting our economy. While Ebola is not as quickly spreading as many past outbreaks such as H1N1 or swine flu, as many of you know it, Ebola has spread enough panic across the country to cause for great economic concern. And today I would like to inform our audience about the impact of Ebola expenses from when it began to where it's at now, and how it will impact us even in 2015. But first, let's consider how economics relate to Ebola and when it first began. Many people have been asking the question, why hasn't a vaccine been discovered if Ebola has been around for so long? And to answer that question, we can look at it from an economic standpoint. Ebola began in West Africa, one of the poorest countries in the world, where public health care is far less advanced than the United States, as pictured behind me. While Ebola was researched when it was first discovered, there were few incentives to keep funding research for Ebola because Ebola is what the World Health Organization, a global health advocate, would call a neglected tropical disease. And this means that treatments for the disease would be relatively cheap and easy to make and distribute. However, no pharmaceutical companies want to invest in a disease that is prevalent in poorer countries where the profits would be minimal. And pharmaceutical companies tend to target diseases that are prevalent in the United States and therefore are more profitable. And as a result of this lack of treatment, now Ebola has made its way to the United States, affecting our present-day economy as well as creating bigger economic problems in West Africa. Currently, Ebola has cost millions of dollars in the United States and Africa. Surprisingly, the majority of that cost is not related to the treatment or research of Ebola. 90% of the cost is related to reduced spending and general panic from the public. According to the Ebola Economics and Equality in Africa analysis African News Service article, as of October 15, 2014, it stated that lost productivity in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone is expected to exceed $350 million in 2014. In America as well, we are seeing an economic impact. The Kansas City Star, a reputable newspaper in the U.S., states that the Global Business Travel Association, an advocacy group, said in its October 13th to 15th survey of 421 corporate travel managers that 1 in 5 people said that Ebola concerns had summed to a great deal of impact so far. Less people are planning on traveling, which has cost travel agencies and airlines millions of dollars already. And while Ebola has already affected our economy, it is predicted that the cost will only increase from here. Whether or not Ebola stays in the United States, it will continue to have a lasting impact on our economy. As the United States now recognizes the need for treatment, more money will be spent helping affected communities in Africa. The same African News Service article made the prediction that Ebola costs would reach $800 million in 2015. That would be a $450 million increase in 1 year alone. However, this cost could vary drastically depending on whether or not Ebola stays prevalent in the United States And here we have a map of West Africa from the World Health Organization that makes a more bold prediction that Ebola costs will reach $32.6 billion by the end of 2015. This is assuming that Ebola continues spreading at the rates currently observed. And despite whether or not Ebola is cleared from the United States, there's now a new light on how serious the disease is, and this has rallied up a lot of support. The African News Service article states that President Obama sent 4,000 troops to bolster efforts to contain Liberia's Ebola crisis, which must be complemented by sustained efforts to establish more credible primary health institutions, equitable wealth and income generating initiatives, and robust governance structures at national and local levels. This is money out of the United States pocket that will impact our economy for years to come.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, last but not least, we will hear from the director of the Center for Disease Control, Mr. Justin Wood.
Thanks for having me today. Ebola is a vicious disease to be talked about. According to the Associated Press International, a man from Liberia flew to the U.S. after exposure to Ebola and wound up in an isolation ward. He has led calls for the tougher measures to protect Americans, such as banned flights from countries hit by the epidemic. For all means, this means the airlines are not going to risk the passengers by screening them and wiping down everyone's cabin nightly. There was a case of Ebola in the United States by a doctor going over trying to treat Ebola victims and coming back with the actual virus. West Africa does not have direct and with the U.S. being one of the best in the world, it would be kind to help. But it is at the risk that the doctor or even that doctor coming back causing more cases of Ebola in the United States. According for the CDC and Prevention and the National Institutes of Health have been telling us America has some Ebola infections and they're likely to see more. But America does not have an Ebola outbreak, which is extremely unlikely in a health system capable of basic health measures, such as isolation and contact tracing. That basically means that there has been infections but no outbreak, which is good and a good reason why it would be ethical to have the risk of infected people with Ebola come back from West Africa to the United States. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the number of Ebola cases in Liberia and Syria alone, two of the most hardest countries, could reach between 550,000 and 1.4 million by January. But the CDC director, me, held hope that saying if 70% of Ebola patients receive proper care, the disease could run its course by mid-January, and that recent surge in Ebola scored exactly what is needed, most needed. Now the question is, should America go out of their way and help the patients and make sure that they get good care? According to Michael Garrison, who is an op-ed columnist in the Washington Post, this possible vaccine, as usual, is a result of money, brilliance, and work. The effort went slowly until about 2 years ago, when scientists chanced upon a new vector or method of vaccine delivery, chimpanzee virus. Yeah, this video right here.
This is frankly extraordinary. We're trying to do in a few months, which something that might typically take 10 years. We've had accelerated reviews of all our applications, regulatory and ethical approvals and so on. We got going in a few weeks. And we're now trying to proceed so quickly that if things go well, by the end of this year, this vaccine might actually be being used in the 3 affected countries in West Africa.
Now here comes with the ethical debate that further testing is bypassed for the vaccine to be given right to health workers in Africa, while the others demand that the partially tested vaccine should be produced and given out broadly. There's another apparently ruthless reason that health workers should be involved in a controlled double-blind phase 2 of the Ebola virus. It is because of the higher risk of results depend on comparing rates of infection with the high-risk groups. After some receive the vaccine, others do not. In the phase 2 trial, researchers give some people a vaccine that may hurt them, and the others a placebo that may have hurt them and cause like infection and disease. It turns out that the only ethical way we can currently determine if the vaccine actually works. That being said, the process should be furthered in any way possible, but it can't be avoided without the potential of great harm.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today, and I hope all of you guys remember the show where we just discussed the medical, the international, the economical, and the ethical and moral perspective of the show. Sit tight, and after the break, the weather will begin.